Well, here we are in Hollywood, and we're talking to two extremely interesting young men, Cheech and Chong. A lot of our audience have never seen Cheech and Chong. I'm sure of that.
Well, we just got released.
Well, I mean, your first two pictures grossed something like $160 million. What is that in terms of people? What kind of an audience? How many people?
163 million. They saw it at the 79-cent show.
Now listen, you're going to have to be serious because this is a phenomenon in a way that so many people out there haven't seen, and yet, who is your audience? Who are they? Old hippies or young kids?
Our audience are the kids that tell their mom, "Oh, we're just going to the movies, Mom."
And could I have $5?
Yeah.
Is that really your audience?
A lot of them.
A lot of them. Some.
There's quite a, did you seen Woodstock?
Yes.
There's 500,000 there,
Yeah.
or
Well,
more than that.
Every one of those people saw the movie two and a half times.
That's what that's 10 years ago, Woodstock.
Well,
or
they
something.
grow up.
And they're coming back to see
and
you.
they're
They're
kids.
coming back, and then they have children that have never seen us, never heard the records, and we got an album following, and we got quite a big following. And then when you read it in the paper, Cheech and Chong appearing in a movie, and comedy is such a big thing with everybody. So I guess counting all those different elements together, you come up with
You've got a
Cheech
big
and Chong
audience.
yeah.
Now, most everyone assumes that all of Southern California is into drugs and sex.
Well, that's because of us.
Well, no, it could well be.
We've tried our best to promote California as a drug capital of the world.
And sex.
And sex. And we found out sex is more popular. I think more people, probably because everybody's got one.
Now, Tommy, I want you to be serious because
Okay.
you're a Canadian.
Oh, that makes a difference. doesn't it?
How do
Well, in Canada,
Canadians-
we're not into sex. It's too cold.
and Canadians aren't into drugs, are they? I mean,
Very few.
does this Southern California thing, does it spread out to the rest of the country?
We hope
Somewhat,
so.
yeah, somewhat. A lot of Canadians, aren't into drugs because when they get into drugs, they come to Southern California.
Yeah.
Then they're no longer Canadians.
Yeah,
But
Southern Californians.
the ones that are left, yeah, it's amazing. When you say drugs, let's make a thing there. Marijuana smoking is becoming very popular among the young kids, as they say. And we try to just portray some of that in our movies. But especially this last movie, it's not really totally devoted to drugs. It's devoted to the two characters that we play.
Yes, I had not seen the other two movies. Of course, the minute I have now talked to you and seen this, I have to rush down and catch them. I suppose they're still playing somewhere.
Yeah.
Did you and Cheech initiate what do they call it? Pothead humor?
Yeah, yeah. We were. What happened is that when we got together as comedians, that was right at the height of the end of the '60s, beginning of the '70s, very big all over. Concerts and so on. And there were no comedians playing to the rock and roll
audience.
Rock and roll audience. And so when we started doing rock and roll, humor, naturally the drugs were a big part of it.
We were popular because we used big amps.
Yeah.
Nobody else was using them in those days.
But in order to relate to that particular audience, we had to come up with things that they could relate to. Music, and so it's rock and roll, sex, and drugs. And so we thought, gee, that's not a bad way to make a living.
Yeah.
And you've sure made a living. As a matter of fact, you've made such a living. I'm kind of wondering if, now that you're rich and famous, you're still going to appeal to that. There's a certain ethnic kind of audience. I have to put this carefully because I don't want to sound like I'm putting down a whole group of Americans and
Two-thirds
Canadians.
of the world.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's okay. It'll come out that way anyways.
But what I'm saying is that now that you're rich and famous, will you still have that appeal to the guys that haven't made it?
Well, I'm getting a nationality change operation.
Listen, no matter how rich and famous we are, they still won't let us in the polo lounge.
Oh, that's interesting, because I'm curious. How do you get along with the establishment here in Hollywood? The so-called movie moguls and the...
Very well.
Yeah.
Very well.
They're Cheech and Chong fans. We found out that the studio executives, the higher you go, the bigger Cheech and Chong fans they are. Because they identify with the classic screen comedians.
And if you're successful, people like what you do, even if they don't know what you do. They just know you must be somebody, so.
Oh, well, that's kind of a different thing then, isn't it? That is, again, into a whole new area.
Yeah.
And Does your humor ever attack that sort of thing while you're part of it? Can you still be objective enough to attack it?
Our humor is popular because we don't attack anything. If
poke
we attack
gentle fun.
anything, it's ourselves. You know what we do. We get these characters in all sorts of jackpots and situations where it's just ourselves. We haven't evolved mentally to the point of being able to know who our enemies are. We don't. These characters that we play, we have no enemies, but we're like this force that goes through the world that everybody can identify. The younger kids or the workers or the people that, you know, the down and out people, or the blue collar humor is what Ned Tannen called it. And we represent those people.
But you know, critics sit back and they analyze, and even while you may not
That's
agree.
a joke.
You should
Analyzing.
sit forward instead of sitting back.
No, analyzing Cheech and Chong, I mean, they can only report on the phenomenon. They can't make it a dent either way.
It's like analyzing a granny knot. I know it holds,
But you do reflect something.
Yes.
And in a way, it is up to a critic to say, now, just what do Cheech and Chong reflect in our society?
I think what we reflect is the diabolical innocence that two people, like, see, as a comedy team, the strength is the fact that there's two of us, and we get along with each other, and we represent people that have a friend, or people that have a wife, and so on, a pair. So we're the comedy team to begin with, and then how we relate and deal with the world in a funny way. It's carefree. I mean, nothing's really important in our world as important as getting to the concert or smoking that joint or finding that girl. I mean, we're very basic. Our lusts are very basic. And that's why it appeals to a lot of people, because basically that's the same thing that they're interested in.
we follow our nose. Okay.
All right, now, that brings up something else that I found fascinating in Nice Dreams. We should mention the name of the picture. I don't think I
Opens
even
June
got
5th.
the name of the picture in there.
It's already open.
All right, feminists complained that women used to be treated like sex objects. Now, I'm talking about Marilyn Monroe, the Lana Turners. They were treated like sex objects.
Well, they treat us like sex objects now in our films.
Well, now, but I want you to think about this, because this is something that really hit me when I was watching you. How are the women treated in your they're treated like props? I mean, what are the feminists going to say about this?
Well,
Well,
more props.
down with Cheech and Chong. And when you get them down,
Now, you might laugh this off, you know. You two
Then I might
have to
not.
come right down to order again, because this is a very important
Well,
thing. This is your
to begin with,
Everybody else in
we
our film is treated like props.
are married to two very active feminists. Cheech's wife and my wife are very liberated, and they have a great deal to say what goes into our movie. They both were in the movie, and you can sit back and make judgment, but when you're involved in the movie, a comedy, all you want are laughs. So you don't care if you're a prop or whatever it takes to get the laugh, you'll do, and that's what happens in our movie. I mean, if you're competing with laughs in the movie, like Evelyn, for instance, Evelyn Guerrera, the girl that Cheech meets in Chinatown, that was a funny episode, period. It had nothing, I mean, she had the power to lead two guys around, and then two more cops, and then another biker. So what we show is, we show this power that a woman has, that they don't even know they have. And they're not even aware of it, especially like in Evelyn, where they'll lead guys through anything. The guys will do anything to do that. And there's a ring of truth to it. And so what we're doing, whether it's good or bad, it's truthful. So.
which makes it very interesting.
Yes.
Does humor change from one decade to the next, and in what way has it changed?
I don't
since
think
you've been-
I don't think it changes. I really don't. I think what happens is that if you try to change it, you end up going right back to basics.
It always comes out the human comedy. I mean, little subtleties change of it's like the clothes change, but you always wear clothes, it kind of.
The basic quality of the human experience, it never changes.
Yeah.
And what was funny with Chaplin, we can update the same script and be just as funny.
Do you know what old-timers like Bob Hope and George Burns, and maybe even Johnny Carson. He's not certainly as young as you fellas. So, do you know how they regard your humor, what they think of your humor?
I don't know really. I don't know if they're even aware that we exist. I know Carson does.
aware of it because he uses us for jokes.
Yeah.
In his monologue.
he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like,
We've never been on his show though.
it's a standard drug reference joke, you know, or whatever, you know. blah, blah, blah.
I don't know really what they think. George Burns, I think he's got his mind on other things. Probably just one thing at his age.
Oh, you'd be surprised. I mean, he initiated, I guess, the
Well, what
first
other-
kind of sex.
I know, that's what I'm talking about. What else is there to think about at that age?
Uh-huh.
I don't know. I can't tell. I know Bob Newhart doesn't understand us, like us, or appreciate us
But there's
at all.
other comedians that do, so.
Who? Now, who would be the comedian?
Richard Pryor is a big fan of Cheech and Chong. He comes to our shows and comes backstage and raps and tells us how much he likes us.
You know, that doesn't exactly surprise me.
No.
But can you think of someone else that, I mean, I'm just curious to see the,
Jerry Vale likes us.
My mom, she likes us.
And my 7-year-old son, he thinks we're the greatest. He takes our records in the room and closes the door. And
So
laughs
his
at
dad
them.
won't hear what he's doing.
And he comes out and says, "How do you make that voice, Dad?" He likes us.
how many, you're both married,
Uh-huh.
and you both have children.
Uh-huh.
All right, now, I wanted to get back to who you admire as comedians.
Oh, God.
Or who did you used to admire, first of all, when you were growing up? Who were
Anybody
the
that was
comedians?
funny.
Yeah, anyways, I was like, we were comedy collectors, you know, we liked I liked Amos and Andy, I liked Bob Hope, Red Skelton,
Lenny
Burns
Bruce.
and Alice.
Lenny Bruce changed my life.
That was, he had the big influence in your life.
He did.
Pryor,
Yeah,
Richard
giant-
Pryor is my
giant
favorite.
influence.
Yeah. Anybody.
Jonathan Winters.
Yeah, Jonathan Winters heavily. You'll find out that professional comedians at some point in their deal they're gonna have something that cracks you up.
Put you
And
on
if
the
you're
floor.
and if you are a comedy connoisseur, you sit there and wait.
How did he change your life, Lenny
Lenny
Bruce?
Bruce? Well, he died, and then we could take over.
Do you think that you're carrying on where Lenny
Absolutely.
left off?
We ended up
always
with the
carry
same.
on.
His best friend ended up being our best friend.
Yeah, his father-in-law,
Yeah.
from Evelyn's uncle.
Yeah. He was the first guy to see us. The whole Lenny Bruce crowd came to see us when we very first appeared in
Hollywood.
Hollywood. And Evelyn Guerrera is related some through marriage and that too, Lenny. And so there's a whole Lenny Bruce,
The
his
baton
people.
that got passed on to us.
Yeah. And he just said, and they'd seen every comic around, and they said Cheech and Chong are the closest. And we loved that.
You see, I thought that the Lenny Bruce cult, if you will, that following, had sort of peaked out,
Mm-hmm.
and that humor was going in a totally different direction now.
Oh, it's a classic. It's a classical situation. How Timothy Leary, who was in this film, brought us the encyclopedia, the Encyclopedia Britannica, or whatever. It had 3 kinds of comedy, and ours was one of them. It was classical. It's one the comedy that rises out of the streets in a very rough form, episodic, put together, you know, and then it gets refined, and then refined more, and then it gets, you know, civilized, and then it erupts again because you just can't stop it. It's a comedy that rises out of from the people, you know. And it was good.
How did you get to make your own movies? Every comedian, all comedians want to make their own movies.
Well, we started
do
out
their
in the
own-
Holiday Inn making our own movies.
I'll
Little
have to think
black
about
things over the eye.
The Revenge of the Errand Boy.
The Mexican delivery
Remember
boy.
that I have a family audience.
Oh, family.
Well, they
There was
don't
a
know-
whole family of them in there. See?
They-
Now,
no, we started off with Paramount Pictures. They took a chance on us with Up in Smoke, and it went over really well. And after that, it was quite easy. You know, we just got a deal here and
They
there.
took a big chance, so we made it with our own money.
But
you didn't put any of your own money in.
Lou Eller did. He says.
it was a natural progression for us. We had gone probably as far as we could go with our records and live performance, and we had to either do television or movies, and movies seemed to be more logical.
And you deserted Canada forever. You're now.
No, I live in Canada, as a matter of fact.
Oh, I thought that you had a house in Malibu. I thought I read it in your note. That's you, Richard.
I have
Yeah.
a house in Bel Air, but I
That's right,
I
Bel Air.
try to get to Canada during the good season. which is 2 weeks in July.
You'd better be careful. You'd better be careful.
No, listen,
you
21
better-
years in Calgary, Alberta entitles me to say anything I want about Canada.
That season is even shorter.
Okay, it was nice to talk to you, and I want to thank you very much.
You're
You're
welcome.
frivolous and irreverent,
Thank you.
but always interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we can do wonders with a vibrator.
Oh, God.
Okay, folks.